Pulse wasn't just a nightclub. It was a place where people could come to feel welcome. It didn't matter who you were, who you wanted to be. You felt loved. This is what Pulse is now.
It was really important to me that people learned not only the story of what happened at Pulse that night, but also what you can do differently in your life to change the future, how we can become a better society, a better human race. That's why I began the foundation.
I hope that the memorial will bring people together from all walks of life, but I also hope that it can be a place of love.
As a family member, I said, I hope they turn this place into a museum. I want people to come visit so they can take what happened here and pass it on.
I'm really excited about the educational opportunity of the museum and the wonderful things that the One Pulse Foundation is working on to build a stronger global community.
And my hope is that when they walk out, they've learned not only what happened on June 12th, but how to be a better human, that they will be able to spread the message that we will not let hate win. They will leave equipped how to do that.
The Intro Memorial now is built and it's amazing.
The pictures that are on the barrier wall are of love and support and unity, but mostly you'll see a community, a global community.
This is a magical place. It's always a rainbow, or you'll see a cloud look like an angel. It's peaceful.
People ask if they should come to the memorial. I always recommend it.
It is so welcoming.
There are so many stories.
You can't help but feel the impact. I think everyone should see this.
You'll be so happy that you did.
Gives you a lot of energy of how to go forward.
And it's a really beautiful cathartic experience.
And they're teaching kids that there's no difference between one another person. You always should love.
We found it really important that our angels were not just a name on a wall. And that's why we developed our scholarship program. We had 49 individual scholarships, each in the name of one of our angels, designated by their family members as a way to make sure that their stories lived on forever.
After visiting the memorial, we want people to feel like they're changed for the better, that they want to get involved because the goal is really to stop hate.
There are just so many ways that people can engage with the foundation. Volunteering at our offices, helping us with our events, even just being a guide on site. It's an easy, simple way to be part of the solution.
Being a volunteer for the One Pulse Foundation, it's a life-changing experience.
Come out, check it out, and get involved. Go to the One Pulse Foundation website.
Donate to the One Pulse Foundation to help us build the memorial site to honor all of them, to keep the memories going forever.
Everybody's human. Treat everybody equally.
Love still wins, and the message is still alive and well.
It's going to change your life.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
Nosotros no dejaremos que el odio gane.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
We will not let hate win.
Love is love, and we will not let hate win.
Pulse nightclub in Orlando was not just a place where people could be free to be themselves, but a place to find community and safety. To know that the essence of Pulse was shattered by a mass shooting and terrorist attack in our country remains just as unimaginable today as it was that night, June 12, 2016. The National Pulse Memorial and Museum is intended to preserve the heart of Pulse, a place where everyone was welcomed and loved. The memorial would be designed as a place to grieve, to honor lives taken and saved, as well as serve as a place to heal and learn. The museum will serve as a community space to tell the history of safe spaces, the tragedy of June 12, 2016, and the response and support of the world. I hope you'll join me in supporting the One Pulse Foundation and help build the National Pulse Memorial and Museum so that we never forget what happened to those precious lives that were taken. We won't let hate win.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Earl Mawat, Vice President of Education for One Pulse Foundation. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight for another virtual film screening and panel discussion. I'd like to welcome those who are joining us for the very first time. These conversation starters are actually intended to talk about subjects that sometimes fall below the radar. So welcome aboard. These conversations are made possible through the generous contributions of our sponsors. So we want to thank J.P. Morgan Chase, City Furniture, and Orlando Utilities Commission for making these presentations possible and continue to impact change. Our mission at One Pulse Foundation is to create and support a memorial that opens hearts, a museum that opens minds, educational programs that open eyes, and legacy scholarships that open doors. Now, to date, we have awarded more than 900,000 scholarships to undergraduate and graduate students. They are carrying on the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of our 49 angels. We are thrilled to partner nationally with amazing writers, directors, and producers to showcase their important work in film and to have a discussion afterwards. You'll be introduced later to our incredible panelists who'll be leading tonight's discussion. And now we are so excited to present to you tonight the short film Body Language by filmmaker Adamu. Body Language explores body image through the lens of African American queer and same gender loving men. It premiered internationally in June 2022 at the Inside Out 2GBTQ+ Film Festival in Toronto as an official Best of the Fest selection. The men in this film, they share their personal journey on body and Black SGL life. It begs the question, in a culture of body shaming, how do you find healing, acceptance, and self-love? I'm excited to welcome to the set filmmaker Adamu to offer his welcome and opening comments. But before I do, Body Language covers some sensitive adult themes and language. Please note that parental discretion is strongly advised for this film. Okay, well, I'll see you in a few. But now, please join me in welcoming Body Language filmmaker Adamu. Odu, take it away, my friend.
Thanks, Dr. Earl, and I am excited to be here tonight and honored to screen the film with you. We're about to watch Body Language, and it is an exploration of body image and experience for Black, gay, queer, same gender loving men. Enjoy.
I hope you enjoyed the short film Body Language and that it shed some insight into body image as the men shared their journey. And now it's time for the panel discussion where we explore the film's theme. Joining us this evening are Body Language filmmaker Adamu. Odu, please say hello to the audience.
Oh, hello again. I'm still Odu.
Next, we have Will McKinney, who is featured in Body Language, and also the founder of the Hef Party, at a New York City-based dance party catering to thick boys of color. Will, say hello.
Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here. Good evening. Good evening.
And we also have on board my friend Daniel Downer, founder of Bros and Convo, whose mission is to provide health education and peer support to gay and queer individuals of color. Daniel?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So blessed and honored to be able to share space and time with all of you.
And tonight's discussion will be facilitated by One Pulse's very own education program specialist, Andres Acosta Ardila. Andres, my friend, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Earl, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you're having a good evening. And we're just going to dive right into this film because it was so interesting that we want to touch on the main point right now. So the first question that I have for you, the panelists, is, does body image present itself differently in Black queer community than other queer communities? And any one of you can start.
Okay, we're not going to do this, so I'll jump in. And because it's also some of the impetus for the film, as we show in the opening, Black body is a very different conversation than white body in America. The experience of the Black body in and of itself is different. The pathology that has been attached to Black body is very different. A Black body has been historically labor in this country, or thought to be. Black body has been thought to be disposable. Black body has been thought to be for the purpose of white pleasure. So starting there, or you need to start there before we then even get to this idea of the aesthetic, because it's also what's inside of the Black body that is very different in this country. So of course, then it's different in queer community as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Odu, for bringing that up, because I think it's virtually impossible to have this conversation without stating the obvious about the differences in race. And when we think about, how body image impacts Black queer communities in relation to other queer communities, race is that definition. I think there's a comparison, and there continues to be a comparison of how Black queer bodies align with what is considered desirable, which for many in the queer community, the European-centric aesthetic is kind of the model, right? The baseline that is the gold post of what is aesthetically pleasing. And so for individuals of queer, diverse representation who don't hit that mark, you are left feeling like you are less than desirable, you are less than attractive, and that your body image or your body type is not one that deserves to be celebrated, that deserves to be affirmed, which is definitely not the case. So there is a difference when it comes to Black queer bodies, and how that difference between Black queer bodies as well as non-Black queer bodies, and how that shows up in spaces.
Echoing the sentiments all across the board. Unfortunately, when it comes to Black body image, particularly in the queer community, sexualization is kind of the first place that it presents itself. In other communities, body image is like, oh, you just don't fit in here. It's like, no, not only do you not fit in, I'm not sexually attracted to you. I don't want to do anything with you. So it definitely creates a larger challenge for Black queer bodies to sort of find this overall acceptance, not only from a mental, but just an overall being standpoint of feeling worthy to just be wanted, let alone to fit into any kind of community. So 100% is different.
And thank you. And you brought up a great point, Daniel, about whiteness being becoming sort of the standard, and when we look at people of color in our community, we end up being cast to the side and then fetishized, often centered around our race, right? And so that comes with its own rules of what is and isn't sexy. And so my question to you, it was further down the list, but I think it fits perfectly here, is how do you challenge sexual stereotypes, and what can we do to overcome our own internalized sexual bias? And any one of you can start.
I'm so sorry. That there was so much that you had asked, Andre. So if you could just restate that.
Yeah, absolutely. The question is, how do you challenge sexual stereotypes, and what can we do to overcome our own internalized sexual bias?
I think for me personally, a lot of it started with doing a lot of hard work and heart work with loving myself, and who I am, and how I show up in spaces, whether that's physically or just my being. And it's still a journey, right? So I want to preface that like I'm nowhere near like I like to say body neutrality, because I understand that there are days where I am really loving the way that I am showing up and how my body is looking. And there are other days where I'm like, being bloated is a thing. It's very, very real. And I also want to put in here as well. I know we're talking about Black and queerness, but I sit at a very unique intersection of not only being a Black and queer individual, but a Black and queer individual living with HIV. And that brings on a whole nother kind of layer, because as a person living with HIV, taking medication to keep you healthy alters your body, right? And so I can think of, as someone who's lived with HIV for close to over a decade, how that has changed. And so I think the way I overcome that is being gentle with myself, affirming myself, understanding that, today, Daniel, you're not looking as slim as you may want to look, but that's okay. Your body is doing exactly what it needs to be doing to keep you healthy. Lots of therapy. And then I also think it's visual, right? And one way that we can really fight some of that stigma is by having more visibility, having more conversations like we're having now displaying different body types so that there's a diverse representation and people can see the varying degrees of what beauty is. It's not just one archetype or one model or body frame or one color. And so I think those are some ways that we can definitely combat that stigma around that.
I have to echo the sentiment of visibility. I think showing up in any room is how you do the work to dispel stereotypes. In my personal experience with stereotypes, they're often rooted in somebody else's experience or somebody that somebody knows. Like it's a third degree or so from the actual person who believes those stereotypes. These are things that they're being sort of told by other people. And when you come and present yourself and are present, you're able to sort of showcase and dispel the myth of what people may perceive to be, the notion of that. So having that representation is important and can often be difficult because we often have to put ourselves in positions to be in places that we don't feel necessarily comfortable in. But I do think by being present, you definitely do help overcome those. And then self-love is definitely very important. To be able to stand in rooms where you're obviously the odd man out or feeling like a other, you have to have a strong sense of self and self-worth to be sort of in that situation and feeling confident enough to say, I don't care what anybody thinks. I love myself. I love who I am, and I'm going to present that to the world. And like I like to say, killing them with kindness. You just showing up is the best way to sort of dispel all of that for sure.
I have a question, right? So we talk about loving yourself, right? So the standard that we talked about of beauty within a community, boy, that standard is way up here, right? Of how queer men are depicted. And that standard helps us to self-evaluate, right? So how do you get to that point of loving yourself where everything is geared towards this ideal concept that no one can achieve or very few people can achieve, right? But yet you are constantly evaluating yourself on that. How do you get to that point where you can actually, where self-love can be fulfilled or realized? I'll throw that out to you.
Thank you so much. I think it's about throwing that goalpost that we have in our minds of like, this is what the standard of beauty is throwing that out and recognizing that you determine what that goalpost is, right? And so coming to a place of realization where my standard of beauty is not to evaluate myself up against what is like a European centric standard. It's evaluating it against myself, right? And so I think realizing that you determine what that standard is can really help you to, one, have a more positive viewpoint around yourself and body image, but then also be able to, as Will has stated, step into spaces unapologetically and boldly you. At least from my personal experience, when I started to celebrate those things about myself that I initially thought were not beautiful, I felt like that's when I kind of had like my glow up in a way, because I was authentically like leaning into that and being like, I'm owning this. I'm owning every part about me, from my big broad nose to, maybe that extra layer of fat that I have. I'm owning that and loving that, because that does not define me as being less beautiful. That makes me even more beautiful.
I also would add, even when we say the term standard of beauty, that's where it starts as a problem. Beauty is. You have to be able to say beauty is, and then whatever ... you are. And when I have this conversation with people, and I won't get into it here because it's a full experience and it's an ongoing experience. I do body affirmation work. I touch my body. I understand my body in very different ways so that I know it's beautiful. I know the pleasure my body gives me, so I know it's beautiful. In all its stages. It's wintertime. I'm gonna be in black till the spring. because of how I like to eat. And it's okay to say, well, you juicy today. That's not, I don't love it. It's just, this is what it is today. So my loving my body is presenting it in a way that I enjoy it. So, because some people think the goal is, well, no matter what, you wear anything and you do this, and that means you love your body. And that is not often true as well. I mean, so it is a very, for me, personal, ongoing, it'll probably be a life thing. Just like I love to love myself every day, I figure out, again, with this body today, what we going to do. And then I make it work.
I think for me, you have to keep in mind, and this is coming from somebody who works in marketing, a lot of times the things that you're seeing from those beauty standards and things like that, a lot of those people have issues themselves. There are things about themselves that they don't like, even though most people in the world would consider them conventionally beautiful. So at the end of the day, you have to remember everybody goes through the same types of sort of feelings of unworthiness or, feeling ugly or not being sort of happy with something about themselves. So you have to remove the goalpost yourself and say, I don't really care what anybody else thinks. I'm going to step into this world loving myself as whole as I can to the best of your ability. And if you can, try to surround yourself with people who are affirming you constantly, not from a standpoint of like, trying to make you feel like, you're super beautiful or you're super sexy, because I think a lot of that is real surface level. At the end of the day, you need to surround yourself with people who are pouring into you to say you are a beautiful person inside and out. And it doesn't matter what the world says, which way or the other. You have to know at the end of the day, you have something to offer, you have something to contribute, and just hold on to that no matter what the outside world looks like. Because 9 times out of 10, people on Instagram are posting their best selves. And I'm guilty of this. I don't always post the negative sides and the negative things that I'm going through. But at the end of the day, you have to keep in mind, as human beings, we all go through stuff. We all feel unworthy at different points. So you just have to love yourself as much as you can and just walk as boldly as you can.
Thank you for that. And when we talk about standard of beauty, especially for gay men, we have a unique challenge that we are attracted to the same gender that we are. And that can often lead to us having a standard of beauty that we're attracted to that at the same time reflects what we're supposed to achieve or supposed to look like. So my question to you is, how does your relationship to who you find attractive impact your self-image?
I can start here. So being a fan of bigger men, I have found over the years that it has been a bit of a struggle, because you do run into different types of bigger men who are either into men who look like themselves or men who look the complete opposite. And I tend to fall somewhere in the middle. So through the years, it definitely has been a challenge to sort of be attracted to bigger guys, but not be a bigger guy myself, as some guys are. And definitely being told like, oh, you're cute, but I prefer this, I prefer that. So kind of always straddling the middle has been a challenge point for myself personally, in navigating sort of who I'm attracted to and feeling the pressure to sort of hit the gym a little bit more, or not to be so conscientious about what I eat, because they don't care. They would like it if I was bigger, so I don't need to be super skinny mini. Or on the opposite, if someone was attracted to smaller guys, sort of like loathing myself, like, man, I'm not a thin guy, I'm a thick dude. So it definitely has been a challenge process. I am grateful now that I have a husband who loves me as I am, so I don't necessarily go through those challenges as much anymore, but it 100% has been a constant battle and probably will be until the end of time.
Well, I have had several different bodies in my time. And I don't know if that helps me to just not be as concerned about body with someone else, because I like a lot of different kind of bodies. But I will say, and this is an exploration I've had in conversation with people, that it's interesting to find people who date their body type because it's comfortable versus what they may find attractive. And then we set up another then construct of that's the body to be. And in doing this, I mean, when you talk to the bears, it becomes, oh my God, you must be thick. Like that's the only thing that's beautiful. Then it's and is it that is true, or is it because then you present a space where you're secure? Because at the end of the day, well, it depends on what you're looking for at the end of the day. But I mean, everybody has this thing that is hot, that is sexy, that is beautiful. Now, you may not see it, that's okay, but it is. So, in doing this and in these conversations, etc., for me, it's just always important to kind of add that explore, not even if necessarily physically, but mentally explore and look at different body types. And there's something Will said, and explore with your own critical thinking and analysis. Like, not all because all my friends or because this or because I'm seeing these pictures like 1,000 times. And to something else, I'll bring this up that I didn't say. I think that's also really important, is to not look at bodies in the media when you're doing body work. Like, you need to do a social media detox, or not go in certain groups or certain sites, not look at certain kinds of adult materials, because that will tell you that all the world looks like that. And then you walk down the street and ignore all these folk not looking like anything you just saw. So again, I apologize, I didn't think about it before, but definitely there are times when you remove yourself from the conversation that's out there to have a conversation in here.
I just want to piggyback on that super fast, because like a lot of these people do things to themselves to look like that. They're not naturally achieving this. They're cheating. They are, getting injections and doing all kind of surgery work to achieve this conventional beauty. So that lets you know it's not real. You do not need to put yourself through all of this hell to try to look a certain way just to get some likes on Instagram. As Odu said, you walk out around the world, people don't look like this. So there's absolutely no need to pressure yourself. Definitely detox from social media.
Yeah, I would say that I think some of my most beautiful, meaningful, and richest connections have been when I have just like ignored what typically is individuals consider to be aesthetically desirable. Those have been some of the most amazing relationships that I have created and forged. And I think it's just, once again, about that holding, looking outside of what's kind of on the surface, and really recognizing that, as Will had said, in every day, walking up and down the street, there are so many different beautiful body types of people, and so appreciating that. And I think also looking at myself is appreciating the uniqueness, because I can resonate with what Will was sharing, as I kind of say that I hold the banner flag for average bods. We're kind of in limbo of, not too small, but just kind of in a weird space. And so for so long, I felt that pressure of either like going, to one binary or the other binary, one extreme. And then I just realized that, once again, those things that I was being so critical about myself actually were the things that individuals appreciated. And so I think just sharing that to individuals who might be feeling that pressure of having to go to either extreme. Like, if you are going to do it for you. Don't do it because you're wanting, like you said, to get the likes on social media, or to get more engagement on your grinder or Jacked. Like, it will come just naturally being yourself. And so appreciating those things about you, that make you makes all of the difference, I think.
Daniel, thanks for sharing that. And while you were speaking, I just had a quick thought that I'd like to ask, right? So we talk about body image as perfection and things like that. Do men that have these perfect bodies, do they get judged unfairly, or what goes on in their heads? Can somebody address that?
I mean, I can't speak for them because that's not my experience. But I feel that being in a queer space, there's always consistently and continuously going to be some type of evaluation or judgment, whether it's body types, whether it is social status. There's a continuous evaluation, and so I can only think that if, as a queer individual myself, who has had the experience of being very critical about how my physical attributes are, I can see that there possibly may be a connection with another queer individual that may be more muscular or more fit or on a whole nother different spectrum.
Can there be any broad generalizations, though? Like how the broad generalizations, if you don't fit in this category, if you're not as socially desirable, it's on this continuum, right? From least socially desirable to most socially desirable, do they, men that fit on that spectrum of more socially desirable, are they perceived with any kind of disparaging, sentiments or positive sentiments?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Odu was going to jump in and share about that.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, on the real, we know like there are different conversations we have about gym bunnies. There's just even that term. So we have we do now. The why we do is what becomes really interesting to me. Are we doing it because we're not like that and we desire that? Are we doing it because we feel like that doesn't desire us? So I think, for me, that's where it gets rich. But, we're going to be honest. If we see somebody, just like the person who goes to the gym and posts a picture every day of them working out. Oh, a lot of people have something to say if they don't have that body type. So, and to Daniel's point, as a community and as a world, we are in here talking about Black, gay, queer, and same gender loving men. But as a world, that's what we do.
And I do have a few friends that fit into that category. And I can honestly say when speaking to them that they definitely have their own set of, body image issues and things like that. Everyone will look at them and say, oh, you're perfect. But there's, some self-loathing that they have. That's why I said, before that everyone goes through this as sort of a human thing. And Odu touched on a very interesting point because it is sort of an interesting psychological standpoint. Then when you look at someone and you start judging them, you're kind of creating these biases already because it's feeding into how you maybe feel about yourself or how they're making you feel about how you look. There is an interesting psychology that goes into it and plays into sort of how you view yourself when you're looking at someone who you may think fits into that conventional beauty type, and they may or may not be interested in you. So again, at the end of the day, you just got to kind of focus on yourself, knowing that everyone is a human being. Everything that you see on social media is not real. And we all go through these feelings of, not feeling like our best selves or, feeling worthy at the end of the day.
And I was going to say, one of the things that I loved as I was looking at the film, Will You Do So Beautifully, is creating community and creating spaces that allow for connection within community of individuals of various body types. And I think that's really, really important in us being able to have those spaces are needed and are very much important to have, especially in a digital age now where you have apps and everything is very much removed from being in a physical space. I think another gem and beautiful thing is creating these community spaces where all of the queer community, all of the gay community, same gender loving community can come together with people of various body types and be able to create connections of some sort.
So you kind of already touched on the next question because it's why is creating spaces where our bodies are celebrated so important? And what role do allies play in that, if any?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all had talked about how it's important to have that visibility to kind of dismantle some of that discrimination, that prejudice, and that bias. But then I also think it's important because it allows for some learning. I know specifically with some of the spaces that we create, for many individuals, it might have been the first time that they were in a space with someone who might be different from them or might look different from them. And so that has been really beneficial in kind of letting them having those aha moments where the light bulb goes off and it's like, maybe the gym bunny isn't as, much of an airhead as I thought, right? The stigma that's attached to that, or maybe it's like, there is something beautiful about a bigger or plus size person, and so I think those spaces are very much important, and specifically for allies. I think opportunities for allies are just like what we're doing now, creating these community conversations where we can really have some real heart to heart, courageous dialogue, but then also creating spaces where there can be education and tools. I know there are amazing body image facilitators that are Black and queer who do amazing work with helping the Black and queer individuals understand what is body image, what is body positivity, what is body neutrality, how are the ways that you can love on yourself and love on your body, as Odu was talking about. So I think those are some other opportunities that allies can step in.
And I would,
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, I just wanted to say, look, you created this space through your film, right? So, as Daniel was mentioning that, and when I saw it, I was like, wow, this needs to be shared, right? So, Odu and Will to an extent too, right? So you were immersed in this process, and something connected you to want to do this film. Has the film itself, as participants in this, has it impacted you in any way? Do you see body image differently before and through this journey to now it's being presented? You're seeing people's reactions to it. Has it impacted you in any way? Odu,
Will,
and
you
then
want to
Will.
go for, and then I'll jump.
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, going back to kind of what Daniel was talking about creating spaces through the party that we created, and I don't want to plug it too much, but it just gave a sense of like community around a concept that had nothing to do with like being sexualized. Because I think oftentimes a lot of the problems with the gay community is everything revolves around sex. So then naturally it does tie into the body concept of things. And I think the beauty of this film and also the party that we have is that it's, shedding a light on sort of like the challenges that people navigate, but also sort of the nuances that don't really matter. With our party in particular, it's about the music. It's about, frankly, shaking ass. And like big dudes like to shake their ass. All dudes like to shake their ass to a certain extent, but a lot of the parties tend to sort of gear towards this, what I like to call more circuit, like masculine presenting music, to try to create this masculine vibe in a party, or like, all about just being sort of hyperactive. And for some reason, twerking and things like that are deemed as sort of, more feminine and, things like that. So it's really unfortunate that those kind of nuances get thrown on that when it's all about just having a good time. But to go back to your question specifically with the film, my sincere hope is that it really does open up people's perceptions and minds on sort of like what the challenges can be as it pertains to body image, and particularly how it can affect men of color, particularly bigger men of color, because there are so many different nuances and challenges that we have to navigate, just to exist inside the community. So it's really important to have these spaces and sort of films and things where we see ourselves and really understand that, our experience is not, in a silo. Other people go through this, and try to find a little bit more community around the concept of it so that we're all sort of helping to change the perception of body image altogether.
Thanks. And I'm going to add to Will and Daniel, because there's the conversation about creating space. And I typically like to move in how the spaces that exist, how are they safer? How are they better? How are they more comfortable? So I wasn't making a film for people who just experienced this. I was making a film for people so that they could have a conversation. Because even if you don't experience it today, you may tomorrow. I had to your point, Earl, I'm Dr. Earl, after a showing at Black Star in Philadelphia, and Black Star is a mainstream Black film festival. It's not LGBTQSGL2SIA. And a woman came to me, she said, I would have never thought about having this conversation with my son. but now I realize it's something that needs to be talked about. So in that way, I think there's an incredible impact. The other thing I'm going to add, though, about making all space comfortable and creating space is we have to also get comfortable with affirming each other. And this is a particular shout out to Black men. Like, we have to be comfortable saying to somebody, whatever, oh, you look good today, those things. And then in turn, we have to be comfortable receiving it, because a lot of people are living in a dialogue with their body because they're not listening, which is the flip of what we said earlier, to an external dialogue, but their internal dialogue is built on lack of self-worth or feeling self-worth, lack of feeling beautiful. So you can never affirm them enough. So there's this, again, going back to the things we said earlier, all this work happening, and again, with the affirmation, we have to be able to do that in regular space. We just have to make it normal. And another thing, we have to push back when we see that's not what's happening. Like the number of memes that get shared that are derogatory around body, the conversations people have when somebody puts up a picture, ESPN, when they do the body issue, if a certain body type is on the cover, it's a lot of chatter. And we have to be able to say, well, what's the problem? I like that body. That body is beautiful. So that it does not just become normal when it's a specific conversation, but it becomes a normal train of thought for people, at least to have a consciousness around the world has more bodies than what you believe to be attractive or sexy.
Does the image of, or has the image of Black SGL men changed over the course of time? Because we see that if we look at, based on magazine covers, we've seen images change. Even male models have changed from going muscular defined to, I guess, waif or whatever it is, has become, right? So has the perception or image of Black SGL men changed over time? And where are we now with it?
Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I think there has been an evolution as our culture has evolved. I do think that there's still opportunities for greater visibility of various body types. And Odu had said something that's really beautiful. I fully appreciate when individuals of however they identify, decide to be very brave, and even on social media, push back against, maybe a photographer decided that they wanted to do an extreme Photoshop or alter that person. I know there have been some conversations pertaining to, there have been female celebrities who've been very vocal about this is what they wanted to put on the magazine cover, but I'm sharing on social media, this is what I want you all to see because what's on the magazine is not a representation. And so I appreciate individuals taking that brave step of saying, like, this is what it really looks like. And so I think there's still opportunities for us as a queer, as the Black queer community, to continue to have that visibility, to continue to celebrate diverse body types, and to, as Odu said, to continue to affirm one another. I personally have been holding myself accountable to, even when I'm on an app like Grindr or Jacked, and it's not a connection, to in some way affirm that individual. So that way, I might have been the only person that affirmed them, as you said, Odu. They may not have never heard that before. And so I think it's important for us to affirm one another, to love on one another, to be vulnerable. It doesn't make us less of masculine individuals, if that's what the label that people are going to use. But it's so important. It's so important to positively, to breathe positive and positive vibes into each other.
Yeah, I think that it is changing. I don't think it has changed. I think the evolution is still occurring, but we are seeing a lot more examples of it being present. You have someone like Suisse, who was a Fenty model this year, so that was beautiful to see. So here and there, things are becoming a little bit more diversified and not only slanted to sort of one body type or one sort of image of it. And I think that that's a beautiful thing. And I want to echo too what Odu said about affirmation is key. I think more and more affirmation amongst Black men is very necessary, and being able to show that vulnerability and emotional side and supportive side of things, and not sort of using shade or judgment as a compliment, or even saying things like, okay, I see you. Like when you say this, like, okay, I know what that means because I'm Black, but like saying, oh, wow, you know, you look really great in that, or, you know, that suit really complements your frame, like taking further steps to that affirmation, I think is really key, instead of, you know, leaning into those types of sort of compliments that we deem acceptable in our community. I think it's very important to verbally affirm each other so we know, I see you, Black man, you are beautiful and you are out here doing your thing. I think those type of compliments are very, very necessary to help continue the evolution of making our image more diverse in the Black queer community, especially.
I want to thank you for that statement, Will. And unfortunately, we are actually at time. I've got a text from the show's producer that we are running out of time. But, you know, in closing, I just want to say, you know, there's some things some themes that came up that I think that we really need to have a conversation on, or at least close with. We have to continue to affirm one another, right? We have to love on one another. I remember reading an article from Naomi Campbell. Everybody knows Naomi Campbell is, and she said, man, I wish I looked like I do in the magazine by the time they're done with it. So what does that say about us and how we perceive ourselves, right? And there is a sexualization of Black SGL males, right? That's just known throughout the community. So it perpetuates this problem of SGL as being sex. And then it kind of has a negative impact when that echoes out to the community. But I think what we really need to do, and even the community internalizes and receives this message, that SGL really isn't about sex, right? It's the capacity to love someone of the same sex, which is different from the act of sex itself. So I think that's something that's important to understand and have that message sent through, because there's so much sexualization of queer in general that we have to really understand what is this that we're talking about, and not be influenced by what society says this is, right? And which is sex. I do want to thank the panel, tonight's panel. I think it was a wonderful job. And as these conversation starters are intended to do, is to open up discussions on things that we don't usually discuss in general. But before we close, I do want to thank the audience for joining us this evening, and those that are newly coming on board, please join us again for the next one. We do it once a quarter. But before we close, I need everyone to do us a favor at Foundation. Please open up your chat window and click the link for our survey. We really want to continue having these discussions, and in order to do that, we need to get your feedback. So if you can please help us with that. And last thing that I will mention before I sign out, or we all sign out, is if you are interested in this, stay tuned, because after the closing credits, you will join Odu and Will for a brief conversation on some of the things that happened on set while they were filming this presentation. So I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. Odu, Will, Daniel, and Andre for facilitating this. God bless and have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Well, what's up?
What's up, sir?
So, you know, people always ask about what happened on the set, and people don't have a consciousness that we were not in the same place at the same time. So
Right.
Where were you when we were filming?
Ironically, I'm in the same place right now. I'm in Florida, so I live in Germany now, but I was on vacation in Florida, sitting outside enjoying the nice weather. So I was not in New York or anywhere else. I was down in Florida just enjoying the weather.
Yeah, because your background, every time like I was editing, because it was December, and I was
Right.
really upset with you. 'Cause I was seeing all that, and I was like crystal clear and blue, and I was like paying Con Ed more and more money. Well, no, National Grid, because I was turning my heat up because it was cold.
I feel
So,
you.
but what was beautiful is you did get to transport us into a wonderful space in the film. Because it was ease and it was like paradise. So I and the sounds and everything. I appreciate that. And that you had a fantastic camera. Like
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
because it looks like, and I think that's what also lends to people thinking they were there.
Yeah.
You know, like we were all there together. And the
Got it.
other part, it was interesting because COVID had we had the second wave.
Right.
So to be able to still get the film done, talk to you, and have all that was beautiful.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. And thank you for everything you brought and shared in the film. Your perspective, because you came from, when we talked, it was because you do the Hef party, but you were also very personal. And
Absolutely.
so I would like to know why you decided to share some of your own story as well when we were filming.
Well, I think it's important because you can often talk about and get caught up in generalizing, particularly when you're talking about, very heavy topics. And I like to try to put personal into these types of things so that people know that it's not just coming from a studied place or a scholarly place, but actually a personal place, and that it's a lived experience that we all go through, no matter how people may view where you are at, or the fact that you might be a subject in a documentary. It's like, oh, he must, or some assumption may be made about where that person is in life and sort of the things he's been through. He has it all together. But I think it's always important to humanize things, because too many times within media, so many things get sort of glossed and sort of made to look super packaged and super, together and all of these things. And obviously you want to try to put together a great presentation so it's received well. But it's important to know that from a personal perspective, we all go through a lot of the same struggles and issues, and that it doesn't really matter who you are. There is ways of relating to someone who you may, look up to, or, appreciate their information or their perspective, that we all can kind of share and learn from each other.
Oh, yeah. Well, you did that. And again, thank you. And I look forward to when you make it back to New York. I will definitely be at the next half. Well, if I'm in New York,
okay,
I will definitely be there. So, all right. Well, enjoy your Florida vacation and the sunshine and your husband and all that. And we will talk again soon.
Yes, sounds good.